Welcome everyone to the Horus Heresy. So Warhammer 30,000, not 40,000. So like in my previous video, the Age of Darkness unboxing, I did say I wasn't going to get too hard into it. I've been collecting 40k for years. I used to play on a fairly regular basis, on average once a week. And I've always hobbied in the background. It's my in-between project, my go-to project sometimes. And throughout lockdown, I did decide to go World Eaters and do a whole World Eaters army. So I did 3,000 points in lockdown. So I always find painting, hobbying, especially the conversion and magnetizing side of things, be very therapeutic for myself. So with the Horus Heresy coming up, I thought now's the time, because they're pretty much half the price in plastic, and they're so much nicer. So no warping from resins, things like that. And it's a little bit too affordable for myself personally. I know we're all on different wages and everything, but I do find it a little bit too easy to pick up boxes of the Horus Heresy. So I picked up 2 boxes of Age of Darkness since I last did a video on the Horus Heresy, and I've gone all in on the Alpha Legion. I've picked up a character, I picked up a couple of, well, actually 3 specific Alpha Legion units, like the Headhunters, which I'm converting. Might even do a video on how to convert them to the new Beaky armor, to the new Mark 6. I do feel like there is a bit of a size difference between the Mark 6s and the Mark 4s of like the Betray Like Calf kind of era. So I might keep my World Eaters Mark 4 and keep the old Beakies Mark 6 for the Alpha Legion, because they would want the new hotness, right? The new armor. So, enough waffling. I'm going to get straight into the Leviathan Dreadnought. So what am I doing in this video? So not only are we doing a small unboxing, I'm not doing a stop animation or anything like that, how I'm putting it together. I'm literally just doing this is what it looks like, the box. This is what it looks like part assembled, and a version of a fully assembled. So it won't be my Alpha Legion, because I haven't painted the new plastic ones yet, but I've had a resin one a few years ago, which I've painted up, which I will show you. And some options, and some tips, and some tricks of how to assemble them, and what kind of thing you look for in them on the table. So, this box is so good, because you get 2 siege drills, and you get 2 of the claws, and it looks really nice. And you've got some options. For example, you'll see you've got some gold trim pieces you can stick on if you want to, or keep it a bit more, what I think, brick-like. And that's what I like on these dreadnoughts. Also, there's a little difference in the crest, and you can have a different groin piece, so the Horus eye there, and there's a different torso section as well, so you could have like a scroll section, or like a chaos kind of symbol. That's an A-pointed lightning bolt coming out of a skull. So there's a few different options of this kit, but the best thing about the kit is, a bit like Hero Quest, all the joint and everything are fantastic for getting different positions, so you don't have to have the standard pose like it's just stood like that. You can have it as it's walking. I've assembled one so it's standing on a pile of rocks with one leg slightly raised in a William Riker fashion. There's one I've assembled here to my right. It's the standard just walking pose, and he is slightly turned to one side, which I will make the base quite rocky anyway, but I wanted one to stand on a pile of rocks and one to be kind of flat. But it's fantastic because you can literally lift the legs up as if they're taking a big stride. You can have the leg raised so it's crumpling a building or a marine or something like that. And same with the claws, you can have the claws open or closed, so you can have like the drill, for example, enclosed like that. Or you can have it open like these claws, crushing a marine, whatever. And the arms are fully posable as well. It's a brilliant kit. And the plastic is so easy to work with compared to resin, because a couple of times I've had these and the resin's been slightly off, not massives. I've been quite lucky. I've had horror stories, especially when it came to the range variant. So here we have the storm cannon array. The barrels weren't always straight. So here's my old school resin one, which I have magnetized. Brings me to the next point. Magnetizing these guys is always a good option. You might want to go range, you might want to go close combat, and there's several different variants. So like I said, Siege Claw, you've got the drills, Grav Flux Bombardment, which is my personal favourite, not because the rules are great, it's just because I like the glowing effect. I just think they're pretty cool. So they just look pretty nice. The Storm Cannon Array was really good at once upon a time in 40k. It is slightly less powerful. I wouldn't say nerfed. It's still a very nice weapon. There's loads of different weapons for it, basically. So definitely magnetize this kit, and not just the arm guns. I'm also talking about the under chest plate, I guess you call it. So I don't know if you can see in there, there is a magnet. I'll point with something that's actually quite useful. I have a cable tie next to me, as you do, being a mechanic and all. You notice there's a hole cut out there, and a magnet I've just sat in next to it. I did not drill these holes. These are fantastic. I've got exactly the right size magnet to drop in there. So, well done Games Workshop. I think that was a fantastic idea. You can just drop a magnet in there, and then you can swap out your chest guns. So your chest guns options are, if I can pick up the right weapon, there we go, the Volkites, so they just slot in there, super easy, and they're not heavy, so you can easily just put one magnet in there, you don't have to put two in there. So half the number of magnets, and these aren't crazy powerful magnets, they're just your regular earth magnets. And it's the same on the actual weapon itself. See, the Volkite and Flamer option, they had holes already in the weapon that pop magnets in. I presume that's what they're for. If not, very happy accident. But the shoulders themselves, you will have to drill and pop a magnet in there. And you can see this one looks slightly scrappy because with magnets, all of my Leviathan Dreadnoughts, the polarity of the magnet should be the same way around, and like a noob, I didn't use a Sharpie and draw on one side of the magnet and make sure the magnet was facing the right way around. Because if I've got 3, 4, 5 of these Dreadnoughts and I want to swap out the weapons pre-game, I can just put one off, put one on, and it doesn't matter which Dreadnought it is. So if they're all the same polarity, brilliant. Like an idiot, didn't check one side, and they look super smooth. Just drilled a hole in. I think it was a 4mm magnet I put in there, and one side was wrong. So, a little tip for you: if you ever super glue a magnet in wrong, because obviously plastic glue won't work for a metal magnet, you don't have to have super glue remover around the house. What I used was a little bit of olive oil. So, tiny little spot of olive oil on the magnet, and the glue after an hour softened up, and I prized it out. Because you can see there where I started hacking with a Stanley knife, a scalpel, and realised this is going to take a lot of effort. I'm going to slip, I'm going to put too much effort in, even though I'm using a cutting mat, and fingers do not grow back. So yeah, tiny little bit of olive oil, softened up the magnet, and I managed to prise the magnet out with just a little bit of effort. Didn't take a lot at all. So if you don't have olive oil, I've heard vinegars are good as well for softening up super glue. And thankfully, it doesn't damage the model, doesn't damage the plastic, certainly doesn't damage the plastic super glue. So I'm using Games Workshop plastic super glue in this model. It's half the weight of the old resin one. It even sounds different as well. It is such a nice kit. So very, very posable, great for weapons options, and I would thoroughly recommend drilling and popping a magnet in for these arms. So easy, and it's quite a big surface area. You don't have to have a hoof and grab magnet, because that was a 4mm magnet there. You can have a tiny magnet because these aren't heavy at all. Plus you can move them at different angles. It just looks so much cooler. So future proofing, definitely magnetize is a great option. And you could always, let's say, buy the ranged version of the Leviathan and then pick up the sprue if you wanted to for the close combat, if you didn't want to buy one kit at close combat, one kit at range, for example. But I personally have bought one range kit, one close combat kit, and one close combat sprue, because the close combat sprue gives you an extra elbow and an extra like wrist piece. So the wrist piece is like the shroudy piece there, which the siege drill will sit into. If you only had the close combat variant, you can build two siege drills, or two claws, or one of each. You can't build all four, even though you only got one. Why would you want four? Once again, future proofing. If you have another dreadnought and you want two with close combat variants, definitely buy the upgrade sprue, because in the kit they don't give you additional one of them, or an elbow. They give you the close combat stuff initially, but not this arm section. And yes, you could magnetize the hand piece and swap out the individual claws, but I'd rather have one magnet, less faff, and not crazy money. I think it was something like £16 from Games Workshop Direct. So if you can get it somewhere else, you can probably get it a little bit cheaper. But I didn't think that was unreasonable, because I know full well if I just magnetize the claw pieces rather than the actual whole arm, I will lose it. And once again, it is easier swapping guns and whole arms out every time. So you don't have to have a different magnet on the gun, and then you have an arm section and then another magnet for the claw. So less faff, tiny bit more money. It's not too expensive at all for Games Workshop. So that is the different options. So when it comes to magnetizing, the only thing I suggest you leave off, unless you want to be super fiddly, and drop a magnet in there and in there on every one of your weapons, from drills to claws to guns, because there is a power cable or power conduit that's supposed to glue there normally. But for magnetizing options, it's best to leave that out. Now, I don't think it makes too much of a difference to the look of the model. Still looks pretty biff, still looks pretty cool. But yeah, that's where it's supposed to go. So there is two holes left there. I mean, you could possibly glue that end, because that's a fixed point, and when you put your other weapon in, you can just lock it in place, I suppose, so it's attached there. But I find that will probably end up snapping off, and then you would have to put every single one of your weapons for that side in the same position as well. You could do that, that's fine, but for me, I'm just going to leave it off. I don't think it makes too much of a difference. And I can show you now with a tiny little magnet, which I'll put here and probably lose. And you can see now there's a black marker pen mark on one side to show which side I should glue, and how easy these magnets are to drop in. To this one is actually a flamer, so I've got no fingernails, which is probably helpful, but just dropping it in there, slide it into the hole, and it just fits so snugly. It's unreal. So they must have known. That can't have been an accident. So yeah, a little bit of super glue, and that'll fit in there. Lovely. So that's the hobbying side of it. Now the rules side of this thing. I personally would not have two of the claws or two of the drills on a model. I would do one of each. Because if you've got one claw and one drill, you still get the bonus for additional attack for having 2 close combat weapons. And it gives you options of what you're attacking at the time. Are you attacking something like the Siege Claw is Strength 10. So are you really going to use Strength 10 on a close combat troop? Possibly, if you really want to kill it. You're definitely wounding it on 2s, that's for sure. So that's the big scissory looking crab pincery looking claw. So that's an actual claw. Strength 10 is definitely going to kill infantry. It's wounding on 2s generally, because if you're attacking toughness 4 infantry, it's just going to muller it. It's brilliant. That's AP 2 as well, which is insane. And it's brutal 3. So anything that gets through, let's say you're attacking a Terminator, it's got 2 wounds, it's going to instantly kill it, you know. Someone's revving up our car with a big bore exhaust outside, which is very helpful. And they should know that we're recording, right? And then you've got the drill itself, which is my favourite, just because it looks cool. So yeah, you've got the big, snippy, crab-like jaws, the actual claws itself. It looks like the jaws of life if you're cutting into a car. It's strength 10, so you're going to be messing up most infantry with that kind of thing. It's AP 2, which is still... Strength 10 isn't bad against tanks. It's alright. Let's say you're hitting a rhino, you know, toughness 10 in the back in a way. And it's brutal 3. So anything that gets through is doing 3 damage, which really is brutal, no pun intended. Then you have the drill itself. Now, I find the drill just so appeasing to the eye. Maybe it's because I'm a Blood Angels and a World Eaters player. I can imagine a World Eaters Dreadnought like this, painted up white, with nice sponging effects of blood for the Blood God. So if you did need that little bit extra strength, this thing is designed to destroy tanks. It is strength 12, and it has Armor Bane. Now, Armor Bane is brilliant because all the hits you do with this thing is counted as Armor Bane. Which allows you to reroll all failed wound rolls. If you're attacking a Dreadnought, which, to be fair, Dreadnoughts are pretty common in this game, and if you're attacking a good old tank, you roll an additional d6 for armor penetration when targeting a vehicle specifically, because Dreadnoughts are not vehicles. So it's pretty nice. Like I say, it's got the Armor Bane special rule, so you're rolling additional dice. It's still AP 2. It doesn't have the Brutal 3. So it gives you options. So if you've got a drill and you've got the claw, at least you can go, okay, I'm going to charge this unit. I'm going to be using the Snippy Claw. Okay, next turn, after you eradicate them, you might be going after a tank. So it gives you more versatility. And it's not too crazy on the 0 points either. So that's pretty nice. But then it comes down to like the chest guns. Do you want to use flamers, which is the classic teardrop flaming template, which, you know, it's an okay range. If you want to go after infantry, that's the weapon to use. Volkite is slightly better. It is strength 6. So you can take out your elite infantry a bit more. There's no armor pen on any of these weapons, but the strength 6 is nice. You get a little bit more range with the Volkite, and any unsaved wounds, they get to roll that many dice again, and they could have additional wounds on them, which is nice, because of a special rule with Volkite. Flamers, it's a heavy flamer. Don't be fooled because it's tiny. You're sticking this thing on a massive dreadnought, so even though this thing is yay big, that is a heavy flamer, which means that's a strength 4. So you're still wounding most infantry on 3s, because it's better than toughness 4. Which isn't bad. But if they're spread out, or there's only one or two of them, you're not going to get that many shots from flamers. If you're charging a 20-man unit of tactical marines, for example, and you get alongside of them, hopefully you can get a nice couple of teardrop shapes over them and you're going to get more hits. So what would you prefer? 2 shots each with the Volkites, or potentially more shots of the flamers? You got to get closer. Me personally, I will probably go Volkites purely because I like the glowing effect. That's it. So when I'm painting these things, I really want them to glow, and I think the nice contrast between my Alpha Legion colours, like the turquoisey blue, with like a fluorescent orange, I think would be quite nice. That's not rulesy, that's just me personally. I think they look cool. But I have magnetised them, so if I don't think they're very good, I may swap out with the flamers. But that's not bad. So if you went with the flamers and you went with a claw and a drill, it's 275 points. Not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's okay. You can always change out the siege drill for a ground flux bombardment. So that's the glowy cannon type thing I had earlier on, which is 5 points. The cyclonic melter lance, which is definitely going to mess up most vehicles' days, is a whopping 20 points. The storm cannons are 10s, so it's not bad. You can have 2 storm cannons on this thing and just be a gun platform. It's got pretty good range on it. You can sit at the back and just start gunning down some infantry. Brilliant. The siege claw has no cost, and siege drill is only 5 points. So I think one of each is a good call. It's only 5 points difference, so it's not too bad. You do get a phosphorus discharger, so you can stick that on the roof. So it was Hunter Killer in 40k, but this is a phosphorus discharger, range 18. It's not massive range. It is strength 5. It's only 1 shot with a heavy, but it's barrage, so that's your blast 3 template. Poison, which happens on a 3-up, which means it will wound on a 3-up, which is pretty nice. Crawling fire and lingering death, which are both awesome names for bands. I think that should happen. So lingering death, after the attack is resolved, leaving the blast template in play for the rest of the game and mark it with a counter of some kind. This area is now dangerous terrain, which is pretty cool. And crawling fire, after the blast template for the weapon with the special rules being placed, the attacking unit's controlling player may move the marker 2 inches in any direction, as long as this would cover more models than it would previously. That's pretty nice. So it's, you can get like twin linked with some of these weapons. You get twin linked Havoc launchers, which have the same kind of blast template. It's on top of a Dreadnought, things like that. Twin link means you can re-roll it, which is nice, which is okay, whereas crawling fire is, okay, I've hit them, it's deviated slightly, but if I flip it this way, I'm going to hit more models. So that potentially could be better. Because they got a pretty good ballistic skill anyway, so they're not as likely to drift the blast template. But I don't know, it's pretty nice. Would I spend 20 points on it? Probably not, because of 20 points, it would take it to 295. That is with your heavy flamers, your melter guns, which are inside your fists, and the drill and the claw itself with the phosphorus on the top. So the melter gun inside the fists, don't forget, because they're 1 shot piece, they're strength 8, they're AP 1, and they have armor bane. So remember the armor bane rule we mentioned previously. They are only range 12, but if you equip these guys with 2 close combat weapons, they're going to try to move every single time. Like the first turn, it can move 6 inches, plus your initiative is 10 inches. So if it's going to be advancing, it's 10 inches up the table. So in the second turn, it's probably going to try to get into close combat. And it's probably going to survive because it's strength 8, it's toughness 8. So even if you don't go for close combat weapons, you still got strength 8 elbows, I guess, and knees. It's 7 wounds. It's 4 on the initiative because it's not going to be the fastest go out there. 5 attacks, leadership 9, save 2 up. And because it's got the animantic deflector, it's got 5 up and vulnerable, which is always nice. Ballistic skill and weapon skill with 5, so going against infantry, things like that, you know, you're going to do pretty well. So, what do you want to do with this guy? Do you want him to be attacking infantry? Infantry are really going to struggle against this thing unless they've got like power fists, things like this. Because it's got 5 wounds, it's toughness 8. You probably won't be wanting to charge your power fist terminators, but lightning claw terminators, give it a go. And definitely you can rip up some tactical units for sure. But for 275 versus a tactical unit of, what are they, 100 points for 10 men without anything on, completely stock, you're going to have to kill a fair few to get your points back. So, me personally, I can see these guys either going like double storm cannon arrays and just sitting at the back and shooting, or maybe charging a big tank. So, if you were charging a tank with these guys, the tank really doesn't stand much of a chance. But it's getting there, I do understand that. So, for your money, I would say the Storm Cannon Array is pretty nice if you wanted to mess up infantry. I probably wouldn't go with 2 of the claws because the Storm Cannon is strength 7, so it's going to be messing up most infantry, even your elite stuff. It's range 24, so this guy could still move 6 inches and still shoot. So effective range of 30 inches. AP4, alright, it's not really going to mess up anybody's day, but it's 6 shots each. So it's 12 shots if you've got 2 of these things. Remember, they're not expensive at all. They're only 10 points. So you could have Two of these for the price of one of the phosphorus cannons. Alright, it's got crawling death and all that cool stuff. But you could have 2 storm cannons on this thing for $290, which I think is fairly reasonable. So like I said, that's 12 shots, and it's rending on 5s. So if you do get 5 or more, it's going to be AP2, really shredding into that armour. And I think just the weight of shots, chances are it's going to be hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s. It's going to mess some units' days up. And it's still fairly survivable, unless it's getting hit by like a super heavy weapon, or someone's going to come at you with some melters. But yeah, it's pretty nice. The weapon also has Sunder as well, so you can re-roll failed armor penetration rolls against vehicles with it. Are you going to be shooting vehicles with strength 7 stuff? I don't know, but after you wipe out all that infantry, why not have a go, right? I just think the model's lovely. I think the rules are pretty nice. I do like the fact that there's these tiny little holes in the under chest plate guns. So I think Games Workshop have really thought about that. And there's a good area here to drill to put magnets in. They've, you could put something really substantial in there. Not that the weapons are heavy. It's certainly not going to fall off with 4mm magnets. So yeah, very reasonable price on the table and in the box. It can really do some work. And yeah, definitely future-proof. Magnetize your Leviathans. And if you're like me and you didn't mark up with a marker pen to show which way around the magnet goes, don't forget, if you don't have super glue remover, try a little bit of olive oil. That's a good tip. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Catch you in the next one.